Happy New Year. Wishing you always the best.
All right, so this is finally the cold arrived. There is a cold front, and for the last 2 3 nights, it's been on the 30th, 30 degrees Fahrenheit, so a little bit below 0 Celsius. And among of the preparations that I did for winter, I started to use the reflective material. This is a reflective radiant barrier used in construction. So this is mostly used in home constructions, and depending of the use and the installation uh, of this material, it varies on the insulation rating. So if it's put between in between walls, if it is against another insulated body, if it is not, if it is in the attic, right in between rafters, if it is in an empty space, depending of all the different methods of installation, it can provide any insulation rated from R5 to R20 plus. And so I do not have any insulated hives yet. I'm planning on building my own. Um, I like the Apime hives, but they're too expensive. At least they're out of reach for me now. And I wish I had a whole yard of Apimes, but they're quite expensive. And while the Landstrofs are the most affordable ones, and the ones that we there you'll find more accessories or modifications or anything that you can do to them, right? So there's ways to insulate hives. Um, Pino Farms, for example, he on his latest design, he uses 2 inches R10 insulation board in between um, two pieces of wood, two walls. Like it has the last drum hive, the regular box, the insulator, and 2 inches all around, and then another piece of wood. Now that provides probably around R13, R12 to R13 of insulated value in the way that he uses it, which is awesome. Now he gets snow, and his winters are longer and colder. We are here in Texas, and it's not. In any case, there is a misconception in which people who actually saw this, they were very, let's say, concerned that this will overheat the piece. Now, insulation, the purpose of insulation is not to heat or to cool anything. The purpose of insulation is to actually separate two different temperatures. Whatever temperature is contained between inside the insulated body and whatever other temperature is around. So let's take a house for example. A house, the outer walls are insulated. The outer walls are insulated, not the inside walls. As you know, they're hollow. But the outer walls are insulated, and they usually use anything from R13 to R15. And the top, the ceiling, the roof is insulated with different materials. There are different materials to insulate, but usually the minimum insulation is R30. So that is used all year long. So it's not, if insulation were to heat, then we all be dead here on Texas on a summer when it is 110 degrees and feels even hotter. And so if that were true, we would be baked in our own houses. So that is not the purpose of insulation. That is not how it works. And so even working this reflective material like this is not providing that much of an insulator either. Now this material is worked in between walls or inside the attic, so there's no contact with the outside temperatures on this material, which is in this case it is. So the reflective is supposed to work as if the temperature comes here, it reflects the same temperature, and this material is double insulated, so the idea is to reflect both temperatures in opposite directions, right? So my rationale was two things. One of the problems with the boxes, the square designs, is that unlike a tree trunk, it has cold corners. So if the wind hits in this corner like it does in this setup, this whole corner is going to be a cold corner. This one too as well, and this wall. So this, all these two walls will be facing the wind, the cold wind, and thus generating different temperature in this side of the hive than on this side of the hive. So by placing this reflective material is not to insulate the hive, because it will not. Let's say if optimistically it will give us an R5 insulation, it will be awesome. The box itself is only on R.7, not even on R1, and so that is why one of my goals in beekeeping is to modify, test, try, design, change anything that I can on the hives to make it so optimal for the bees, in one, to resemble as much as I can the natural setup where they live, which is a tree cavity, for example. And even on the smallest tree where they may live, even if the tree trunk only has about 4 to 5 inches of wood all around, it's still on R5 plus. Now on top of the tree, that's on the walls. On top of the tree, you have infinite insulation. I mean, it's all roof basically for the hive. Same as the bottom. Now you don't have that on a limestone hive, or many hives for that matter, and that is one of the challenges and issues that I want to try. Now I do believe that one of the reasons that people just basically some people approach to beekeeping is, let's get the equipment that they like, that they're comfortable with, either horizontal hives, limestone hive, all kinds of hives, right? I am a believer that bees make it work. So bees are awesome thermoregulators, and so whatever cavity that they're given, they're gonna make it work. So in saying that, I'm not saying that everything is perfect for the bees. They make it work at a cost, and that cost is a metabolic cost for them. If they have an insulated body in which they live, they don't have to spend too much resources eating to gain the energy, to burn that energy, to conserve the heat if it is winter, or they don't have to consume resources to spend the energy just circulating air to keep the temperature. One of the things that for me was my trigger was the specificity, how strict the temperatures for the bees have to be in great input. So to rear brood, they need to be between 93 Fahrenheit to 96 Fahrenheit. So you have a 3-degree window, which is optimal for them, and they do anything to keep it within that range. Collect water from one, oh, there is a girl right there. Collect water, one or many, bearding, they all come out. They all stayed outside, trying to remove their body heat from the hive in order to sustain that temperature. And these two hives I have here in my house because I was trying and testing over the summer. This one has a screen bottom. This one has a solid bottom. And I was testing to see how they regulate the temperature on this one. After a month of just having it in the summer as a regular hive, I designed a small ventilation unit for the brood. And so whenever the brood went over 95, 96 degrees Fahrenheit, the ventilation system will activate, and it was a very passive ventilation system. So the idea was if it goes upwards of 96, ventilation will kick in. It goes back to 96, so it will shut down. And so what I found was I love screen bottoms. I mean, you know, I know they fall out of grace for many beekeepers for many reasons. I mean, everyone with their reasons, right? I fall in love with them because it helped the bees a lot to regulate the temperature. A lot. It was very helpful. We here in Texas summer temperatures went up to 104, 105 or more, and usually the temperature inside the hive is around 10 degrees hotter than that. And so I noticed that they will start bearding when the outside temperature was about 86, and so that's how I came out to that 10 degrees references. But using the screen bottom, they didn't beard as much as they did with this one. So for me, the logic was bearding means everybody stop what they're doing, the whole colony comes to a halt. Most of the bees have to go out to allow the inside of the hive to cool. A minimum of bees will stay there to tend to the brood, but everything halts, everything else halts. And so by providing ventilation and helping them keep the 93 to 96 degrees of temperature, they can concentrate more time on resources, on brooding, and than just spending their life force cooling or heating. So going back to that's been my purpose. The ventilation system worked wonderfully, even though this is solid bottom. With the ventilation, it performed the same as it performed the screen bottom. Now, the difference between them was humidity. So we're in Houston, it's very humid, and so these girls had a tough time regulating humidity. If the humidity was too high, in Houston it can be 100% for a long time, and then so they have a little bit more rough time bringing them down than this one. So the ventilation system served them well on temperature and humidity. The problem was it peaked, so around between 1 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. the temperature will go, even with the ventilation on, it went up to 99 degrees. Now with the screen bottom, it happened exactly the same. It's like if they were the exact same hive, they pick at the exact, almost the exact time. They have a little bit rougher time to bring the temperature down, but if you see the graphics, they're almost the same. And so I know the ventilation system works. I do need to tweak it a little bit because on the 104, 105 degrees outside, it went up to 99, so it went up. So my goal is not to allow the honey supers go upwards of 99 degrees, because for what I read, after a temperature of 99 degrees, some of the enzymes on honey will start to degrade. At 104 degrees, some important enzymes will degrade, and so it's still honey, it's still awesome, it's still sweet. But if the nature design was to not to be heated above 99 degrees, that's my aim. If in nature they have the required to rear the brood between 93 and 96, that's my goal. And so I am aiming for the health of the bees more than honey production or bee production or anything. And in doing that, in controlling those two things, in controlling the temperature and helping the bees um, keep the nutritional value of the honey. So I was thinking that it would help to rear more brood and everything, and indeed it happened. So part of my experiment hold when I installed two packages when you're in first, and by the I got too confident. I was checking the girls every 2-3 weeks, and sometimes 24 days will pass and I haven't checked them. And these girls with the ventilation system, by August 15, they already built. They both build fast. By August, they both have two brood chambers almost full. So the whole full bottom and about 4 to 6 frames on the second brood box. But these girls by August 15, between August 15 and September 1st, they split, they swarm. And so that's completely broke my data right there, because I wanted to compare to the summer how much weight in bees, how much weight in honey. The ventilation system allowed them to build faster than the screen bottom one, which is basically non-intervention, just put a screen bottom and done. Against something that is a little bit management and has a little bit of investment and a little bit of technology minimum. But I couldn't finish it because it worked so well that in 2.5 months a package of bees brood fast, multiply, and swarm in 2.5 months. And so I know it worked, but one failed trial is not enough, to ascertain anything. And so that's an experiment that is going to have to continue. Now back to the winter and insulation, which is my goal. My goal is to keep the bees in the temperatures that they need to have, in the temperature that nature that they have selected, that the nature has selected for them, and doing that. This year my goal has changed a little bit too. I've been very impacted by Dr. Seeley's. I saw a video about Dr. Seeley talking about one of the problems with honeybees, beekeeping, was our human focus on commercializing the bees, selling bees, and honey, right? but in nature they don't go for immense, huge colonies, and so I'm gonna try to implement a small colony management, and but properly done with the temperature and all that I can help the bees. And this year I'm also gonna try to rear my own queens. I'm going to learn how to graft. I am going on trying to bring or combine some of the traits that were natural to the bees, that because they were an inconvenience for beekeepers, they're being bred out like propolis production, which is their health line. It is their antibiotic. It is extremely important to the bees. So I'm bringing it back. Caucasians are the ones that are very heavy on propolis production. So I'm getting Caucasian queens, uh, Russian queens, bee weaver queens, and the New World Carniolan bees. I'm gonna set up a yard in which I'm gonna keep those populations balanced, trying to rear a lot of them to go in a lot of drone production, and saturate that area with those drones, and trying to get those genes to combine, those traits to combine, and hopefully in a couple of years I might see some results of any hybrids that happen. Um, but yeah, that is my focus this year. Now, going back to this, to finalize with this conversation, because there were some heated conversations in Facebook when they saw this being used in Texas. Insulation is not to heat the hives. Insulation is not to cool the hives. If insulation is properly done, it is contains the temperature. It helps contains the temperature, maintain the temperature of whatever insulated body is. If it's a proper insulation and the bees decide it's 96, that insulation is only doing is separating the outside to the inside temperature. The bees set up the inside temperature whatever they want. By heating, by venting, whatever they want to do is their territory, but I'm giving them the opportunity to do so, and not by having 110 degrees heating on a metal top, radiating the heat down. R1 insulation high body is being slammed by 110 degrees heat, or cold winds or hot winds or anything like that. And so this is how I'm using it. I am I am uploading videos and pictures of the thermal images of how this is helping contain the heat between the hive. You can see how the heat, it is basically around the whole hive and not just in the cluster. On uninsulated hives, when you see thermal images, you see a bowl, which is the cluster, and then you see the cold spots all around it. So using this little insignificant material is helping them a little bit, and I think for what the images that I've taken is a little bit more than a little. And so I have a sensor right in between the two brood boxes, right in the center. But in November, when I opened last, they were building the brood on this side and this side, obviously, because this is the cold side of the hive. And so they're here in the middle. So that's why Etienne Tardif from Canada uses around, Jesus Christ, I think he uses 3, 6, 9, 9, one, two, three, four, about 30 sensors per hive in order to see a whole picture of what's going on in there. Well, that is too expensive for me at the moment. But the sensors, I have one sensor in the between the two brood boxes in the middle, and I have one sensor right above the top frames of the brood box right here. Last night it was at 30 degrees, 32 degrees outside. Environment was 30, 31, 32 degrees. The sensor on the top, it was saying that it was at 72, and the sensor in the middle says it was at 90 degrees. So by temperature difference, you can see it's working. Now these ones are not as worked on the top part of insulation as I did work the other ones in the out yard. They're more exposed. The wind blows really strong over there. I'm heavy and it pushes me, so I put some pallets as a wind breaks in the direction that the wind comes. But so on those I use the insulated supers. I super insulated super box, and I add a moisture board, which is a homicide board, to retain and contain any condensation if it happens. But the idea is like in a tree, if you have a lot of insulation on top, too much insulation on top, if you really have hermetically insulated the top and heat rises, the heat is going to stay in there. There's not going to be any condensation whatsoever. If there is going to be any condensation, it's going to be on the less insulated walls. And so by over insulating the top and just insulated the walls to a minimum, then if condensation happens, it's going to be in the walls, away from the brood, which is what kills the bees. Water, cold water on the broods is what kills the bees, that moisture. But if this is less insulation, so the condensation is going to happen here, the bees can drink it, let it run, whatever they want to do with it is what's going to happen if there is any condensation. And so that's it. That is my approach. And again, for this year, I'm going to be changing a little bit my focus. I'm still going to work on ventilation in summer and humidity control. I'm thinking on working on two completely opposite hive designs and run the same experiment again. And so let's see what happens. Right now, I wanted to talk about this and the work of insulation, what insulation does. It's not heat or cool. That was the point of the whole thing. And so hopefully, you know, this is going to be a great year for everybody. I'm very enthusiastic about working with my girls this year. Let's see what happens with the two new designs, or success or failure. I'll try them all. And I mean, just working with the girls is awesome. Right now temperature is rising, almost getting to 50 degrees, and so the girls are starting to come out. And so that's it. If there's any questions that anybody has, please ask. If I don't know, I'll research the answer, and I'm pretty sure I will have. I would like to know the answer as well if I don't have it. Again, I am not telling anybody how to beekeep. I am learning my own way to do it. I'm growing with my girls, and so everybody is welcome to join me. And I just want to wish everybody a happy new year, happy 2022. I hope it's a great year for everybody. And so I'll keep you posted, and I keep my record growing on this path, um, growing with my bees. So happy new year, and thank you.